I'm Rishi Sunak, the Prime Minister of the UK. Welcome to the Project Flux podcast. Today, we're joined by Micah Piippo to discuss his podcast career. We'll also delve into the significant developments at OpenAI. We will review Google's latest innovations and Build.'s impact on the tech industry. Join us for an insightful conversation on the forefront of technology.
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Project Flux, back for another week and I know it feels like I say this every week, but it really has been an incredible week this week with some huge announcements from the entirety of the tech world, it feels like, certainly from OpenAI and from Google, and we're going to go into that in a lot of detail. For anyone who wants to really find out what the OpenAI announcement was about, we did do a special podcast episode of that, so just go to the show and you can find that, where Yoshi and I spent a good half hour or so talking about it. Really pleased today to have Micah Piippo on, and I'll introduce him in a bit and talk about what he does and what we're going to talk about in the show. But firstly, Yoshi, how are you today?
I'm good, mate. The sun's out, so everything just feels a lot better.
The sun is out, apparently not everywhere, but we've got a bit of sun here, yeah. So we're going to enjoy it whilst we can. And Micah, real pleasure to have you on. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's great to be here. I'm super excited to hit these topics, and I just love this podcast, so I feel fortunate. Thank you for having me on.
And it really is all down to you that this podcast exists. You've given me a lot of good advice along the way, which we really do appreciate. And it really feels like fitting that we've got you on as one of our early guests. Just for those who don't know Micah Piippo is the scheduling manager at Intel's Technology Development Construction Group, where he excels in delivering projects on time and improving planning practices. Previously, he played a key role at Google in developing data center scheduling and co-founding the computer vision and construction team, achieving significant cost savings through automation. Micah holds a master's in project management from St. Mary's University in Minnesota. He is also the creator of Beyond Deadlines, a podcast and a YouTube channel dedicated to construction scheduling and technology with over 4,800 followers. And we are going to talk to you about that in a moment, Micah. But yeah, as I said, great to have you on. And so kind of dive straight into your channel. Can you tell us a bit about your journey and what inspired you to move from, the day job to starting to do the Beyond Deadlines podcast as well?
The second job, you mean?
The second job, yeah. The evening
to
job.
Go along with all the other jobs. Yeah. What happened was I would say a year and a half ago, I was scrolling through LinkedIn like anyone does. I just got this feeling that there wasn't content out there that I resonated with. I wasn't seeing anything that got me out of bed in the morning. Like, here's 1,000 project manager templates and, a bunch of self-help advice. I'm like, where is the really good content for construction planners and schedulers? And unlike other social media platforms, other social media platforms, which I instantly was like, that I'm just going to quit this. I just decided, you know what, I'm just going to start creating. Like, why not? Why not put some ideas and thoughts out there and see how it goes? And so I started long form blogs. Very quickly realized that no one really likes to read. And, Greg Lawton, CEO of Nodes and Links, and I got connected. We started chatting. We're like, well, why don't we do a podcast? And so for there, it just kind of took off. The first several episodes, we just interview each other. And we dive into hypothetical scenarios that planners and schedulers face. And what we're really trying to do is just distill down tactics and strategies that someone can use right away. So we didn't want to do hour-long episodes because, no offense if this is an hour-long episode, we didn't want to do hour-long episodes.
Don't worry, 45 minutes. You're okay.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I always do that where I instantly put my foot in my mouth. But we just wanted to give people strategies and tactics that they could use right away. And that's the whole premise of the show. And so right now I'm on this mission to go out and find interesting people in the space that I can interview and bring in and hopefully distill down those sorts of strategies and tactics for people.
And I love the format of the show. I've been fortunate enough to be a guest on it, and it was an experience. I will tell you that. And we'll put a link to the episode that I featured in, because I got to meet Nasty Greg, which was quite an event,
on the hot seat.
Life event. I was on the hot seat. I kind of survived, I think. I mean, you can
I think
tell
you
me,
did
Mike,
great.
but it was
Yeah.
it was
We won't
a
tell the view.
real
We won't tell you the views compared to other episodes. I want you to walk out of here feeling good about yourself.
yeah. But it was, we will definitely put the notes up, but I really did like the whole format, and I listened to it religiously because there is always this sense of jeopardy, I think, with your podcast as well, because you do have Greg there grilling people, which is always interesting and creates some really, really kind of good responses from people. So long may it continue. I talked about my particular scenario there. Have you got any other interesting or surprising topics or events that's happened throughout the podcast existence?
Yeah. Well, I think the biggest surprise for me, maybe not episode wise, is just the feedback we've gotten from people. I mean, I always love when people reach out to me and be like, hey, we haven't seen anything on earned value yet. And I can go find someone from earned value and bring them in. Hey, we haven't seen enough on resource planning or change management and bringing those in. To date, probably my favorite episode is I finally convinced my old boss at Google, Matt Krask, who's the head of project controls there, to come on and give his thoughts on like digital construction. And it's a deep episode that you could go back and re-listen to 3 or 4 times because there's just so many layers to that cake. So I'd probably say that's my favorite episode, right now. And there's a lot of favorite moments. And then just the people reaching back out and the engagement with the audience has been so much fun.
Yeah, it's incredibly rewarding, isn't it? I mean, we're only on episode, what are we, Yoshi? Is this episode 8 or something, I think?
8, yeah.
And, we took your advice, getting this set up and everything was greatly appreciated. But it is the reward that you get from people reaching out. And it might only be 1 or 2 people. Certainly at our stage, it's 1 or 2 people. But it is incredibly rewarding when someone says that content really helped me in one way or another.
Yeah, I feel like this is the future a bit because to me, I know we can get into this as much as we want, but everything under the sun's already been said. And even when you bring these new technologies out, they do provide new capabilities and they do elevate things. But the way information has been packaged up and educated, it's really hard to find something new. And so when people go out to learn now, they just want to find the right voice, the right person, the right medium. Oh, I can relate to this person better. And so in my opinion, we actually need more creators out there to help deliver education in different ways. And especially when so for me, I'm in construction planning and scheduling. There's no formal college education for it. And so you don't have this like massive body of work that's helping push people forward. And very similar when you get into, what you guys talk about on the new technology front. It's not like you can go get educated in this stuff. And so you need people out there who's going to push these things forward, who help educate people. And so that's really interesting to me, is I honestly just, anybody who's out there trying to start a podcast, more than happy to give them some insights and help, because I always think we need more creators, more people out here doing this, because it just reaches more people.
Yeah. And even though you're right, everything's already been said, it does matter the way it says and the authority. So, your podcast, I feel that there's some messages that I've taken away from it that I've heard before, I've read before maybe, but it hasn't resonated or it hasn't gone in. But I think when you hear it from someone who does it in a certain way, and particularly I think it's around your format as well, it sticks with you. And that's really, really important. So you're right. We need more creators, more people who live and breathe this stuff, who are, involved in the industry. And I say to everyone that I meet, subscribe to as many podcasts as you can, because the reality is it's so easy to listen. You can listen to it in the car. You can listen to it when you're commuting to work, whatever you're doing. And, you might just get, every journey you get one nugget, I find.
Yeah.
That's right. That's my kind of thing for the day. I've got to get one nugget from a podcast somewhere.
Yeah. I started to treat podcasts like I switched with books a while back, where I had this thing in my mind where I'm like, I got to start and I got to finish this podcast, and like same with the book, I got to start this book and I got to finish it. And I found, I started why is that? I'm like, well, that's what we did in school. And I'm like, well, why? I'm like, well, you probably were walking through. But now later in life, I'm like, if I find something that's not boring or interesting or whatever, I just don't listen to it. Or I'll just take that little slider button and I'll pop it like 3/3 of the 2 words away through, and then see what's going on. And it's been such a like release and freedom, because there's no more perfect anymore. It's just, hey, I'll go listen to this and I'll pick up that nugget. And if I'm listening, I'll probably pick up a nugget. And if I don't listen, I won't pick up a nugget. So why don't I just figure out what is engaging to me, what's fun? And I'll do that with books. There's so many books that I'll just, keep, oh, okay. Then boom, found it. And this isn't really resume. I'll put it down and I'll pick it up. And there's no more, I just say there's just no more start to finish with me. And I feel like that principle plays well in just about everything in life, whether you're like working out or running, like as long as you get out there and try it and go, like a 5-minute run is better than a 0-minute run, or creating your first podcast episode is better than not, and that's kind of been a shift I've had recently in my thinking. And I'm with you. I just end up listening to so many more podcasts and picking up those nuggets of information.
Yeah. And you're right, we're very harsh on ourselves sometimes, and we feel like, we've got to finish these things, whether it's a book or a run. But I'm a great believer in the 80-20 rule. That so much value you get in that first 80%, that last 20%, very little additional value you get out of that. So it's fine. It's okay to not finish a book or not finish a podcast, because, as long as you've got something out of it. And, I'm a great believer in reading. I love Audible. Audiobooks are great as well. And podcasts, all these things are a valuable part of the toolkit. And I think it's really important because, as you said, the way that people educate themselves now is different. And I mean, what do you think about the use of podcasts, YouTube, TikTok, social media for the younger generation, particularly educating themselves, using it as an education tool?
I think I have so many mixed feelings on it. I think it's a great
It's a big one.
resource. I think it's a great resource and helpful, but there's this weird thing I've noticed where on the pro side, I think we can easily hit that. Pro side, you have more people breaking down more subjects in more niches ever than before. You can create content for a very specific group at a very low cost. So no longer do I have to just generalize project management. I can just focus on construction planning, scheduling, and I can reach my global audience. You can now leverage tools like ChatGPT. You can take a whole hour-long YouTube video, take the transcript of it, get your highlights in it, and understand whether you want to hit different points and things like that. So there's this just immense, power and capability there. But on the flip side of that, there's always a danger side. And to me, the danger side is when education turns into entertainment and it's no longer education anymore. And there's a lot of different resources and help out there that you will think you're getting education from, but it just really just ends up being entertainment. So I think most shorts...
It's a fine line, isn't it?
Yeah. And this is like, and it's nothing against the people creating the content, but it's more how they've built it for us to digest it. So I would say most people who watch a shorts video don't walk away with some deep understanding or principle, because it's just another dopamine hit. And here's the thing. I'm the biggest hypocrite in the world. I love shorts and the quick videos. And that's why I leave them off my phone and I don't engage with them at all, because it's such an addiction of dopamine hit. And even if you perfectly curate your algorithm not to serve you up weird stuff that like they think that you'll like, but let's say you do a flick.
They're one step ahead of you. They've got you.
Yeah. Let's say you do a flick and there's Micah Piippo telling you this is how you plan and schedule the perfect thing. Are you going to then walk away and go implement that knowledge set? Are you going to go walk away and take that knowledge? No, you're going to be like, oh, and here's a cool way to like make your quads look bigger. And here's a great way to, play the guitar. And I think so that's where it's super powerful, but it's also super dangerous. And once
I found it useful to bring something to your attention, every now and again, you'll get a short that will just spark something. You're right, you won't get a huge amount of education from it, but it will encourage you to go and research that subject a bit more. That can be useful.
Yeah, I think it was Ali Abdaal that I was watching, that his rule is whenever he's reading a book or watching anything and there's a good practical lesson that comes down, you immediately put down what you're doing and you go act on the lesson, because knowledge for knowledge sake is a hobby. And if you aren't going to go practically execute what it's like you're collecting jelly beans, like, great, I got this huge collection of jelly beans. I've read all this stuff. I know all this stuff, but I'm not actually going and practically using it. So what's the point? And this circles back to
it's hard because there's so much.
Yeah, that just circles back to like, why not become a creator. Like if you have no other use to the knowledge you're accumulating, then why don't you share it? Which is kind of a paradox, because then you get more shorts and reels and yeah.
You have to you have to be extremely disciplined to keep away from those things. I go through various phases of kind of uninstalling them from my phone, and then saying, "Oh, I'm just going to put it back on just to do this little task." And then 6 months later, it's still there. But there you go.
My favorite hack now.
Moving on,
real quick. My favorite hack right now for anybody who's struggling with this. I have an Android phone, but I think you could do the exact same thing in OS. I have an iPad. I do something very similar. I put on focus mode on it, and it blocks, and I can select all the apps it blocks, and I have it on all throughout the day. And so, like, let's say if I just want to use a web browser on my phone, I will click it, and there's a little prompt that just says, like, use it for 5 minutes, and I do that every single time now. And it's found, because a lot of times I just pause and I think about that, and I'm like, no, I don't need to know how many points Jalen Brunson scored in the last basketball game right now. Like, I can figure that out later. Like, that is not critical. Or like, no, I don't need to pick up my phone.
You're a better man than me, because I can't resist that.
And so that little one has helped me quite a bit so far. And I don't know. One day we'll just have.
There you go. There's your nugget, everyone. Already you got your nugget from this podcast.
Yeah. See you next week.
Yeah. Right. Moving on to some of the big stories of the week then. And we cannot fail to start without talking about the big announcement from OpenAI. So as I said, we did cover this in a bonus special episode that Yoshi and I unpacked information, but that was literally the afternoon. And we've had a few days now to live with it all. And I think it's fair to say, Yoshi, be equally blown away as we were on the day. Michael, what did you think of the announcement? Were you pretty excited about this GPT Omni?
Absolutely blown away as well. I mean, the pace and progress in which it just felt like a couple of weeks ago they were announcing the make your own GPT. And now you have like this assistant capability. I actually showed my mom it the other day. I was like, hey mom, check this out. And of course she's totally not in the space.
Yeah.
And we were outside grilling, and I'm like, right for me, he's like, assume the role of a, construction planner or scheduler. Okay, great, Micah. Like, da, 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 da. Like, and then, make for me a scheduling specification. And then I'm like, now explain it to my mom who's sitting next to me. And it was just like, it's just wild.
It's mad. It is really good. And I don't know if I just read actually, apparently Scarlett Johansson is going on your story, Yoshi, is telling them to take her voice down because they've literally based it on the character from the movie Her.
Sky. Yeah, I did see that.
But what's the most exciting or most notable feature, do you think, Micah, from the announcement? Because there was quite a lot there with the visuals and the data analytics and the memory and et cetera, et cetera. What's the most notable one, do you think?
My biggest one was the visual piece of it, because I'm in construction, and I do believe that the vast majority of construction is a visual-based interaction. And that's where there's a lot of ability to innovate and create a whole new change technologically. And so anytime, I think they called it O for Omni, but anytime you have that wild blend of capability there, I just feel that is, to me, is just the best stuff out there. I cannot get enough of that and where that's headed.
So on a practical basis then, how can you, if you can give me, because you're good with your scenario, that's kind of what you do on your podcast, give me a scenario for a scheduler where this new Omni model is sort of going to help so people can really understand.
Yeah, well, so the tough part is for construction, this is why construction stays laggard in the technology space, is companies don't allow most people to pick up these technologies and use them right away. Yeah. And so when you're like, it's pretty rare that a company is going to have go ahead and just go use ChatGPT and the space. But I think initially a scenario that I could see for this is you're going to be able to perform a lot of tasks verbally and conversationally with people that you just never be able to do. And so that perfect example I gave for my mom, I think that expands to literally the entire project management framework, where you're going to be able to just create content and information that you've never done before. So a scheduling specification, a basis of schedule, a schedule, template for a review, just some of those like very low hanging document related type pieces. And then I think as you go forward into the future, if that capability can be actually put on a construction database set, man, I mean, there's a company out there, the visual-based progressing companies. I think we'll talk about one here, but the loads of them where it seems like if they can bring this technology into their platforms, it's only going to elevate that capability.
And there's no reason not to. It's free, isn't it? I mean, the APIs that they're providing, this is going to be ultra accessible for anyone.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some technological hurdles. Yeah, go ahead, Yoshi.
That's what I think what was actually a big win for OpenAI was the fact that they expand accessibility so it was easier for people with the free model to use, and also with custom GPTs and the development costs and the speed. I think making that more accessible was a key standout. But also the fact that it's very human-like, and I think the interaction with the AI, it makes it so much more authentic. And thinking of a use case as well, I mean, if you're in a call, you can have ChatGPT sitting in as another member, and you can help you to make decisions really quickly. And if you've kind of programmed that to kind of think of mental models and all these different things to help come to or enhance your decision making, it can really support the conversation and make decisions a lot quicker.
Yeah, exactly. The one that just came to mind when you're talking about it is you're sitting in a baseline schedule review and you pre-program it to say, listen and provide me questions. Let's say you're an owner and y'all are the general contractor and we're doing a baseline review and you're talking me through this baseline review, and I pre-program it to say, provide me questions I should be asking to get better results out of my baseline schedule. I mean, it's going to live sit there and be like, ask about the tertiary critical path. And, what about those constraints on the permitting? Shouldn't those be, this or that? I mean, it's one of those ones where it will definitely take it up. The one you mentioned that I'm super interested in, and shout out to all the schedulers out there, are all of the custom GPTs. Free users can now access them?
Yep. All free.
Yes. So that's wild because there's a couple GPTs out there that is the number one scheduling software is Primavera P6 in the construction industry. Mm-hmm. There's a couple custom GPTs out there that are wild. They are Primavera P6. Basically, I don't know, someone's loaded in the back, like a user manual and some other things. And you can ask literally any question related to Primavera P6. And I've used it 20, 30 times now, and it has been spot on every single time. And it's for all those like weird one-offs, because Primavera P6, there's all these weird one-offs. Like, why is this date moved when I schedule it? And you'd have to spend hours going in, checking calendars, resources, blah, blah, blah. And it can just, boom. I think that one's huge.
And the other thing I didn't realize, and I've played, I don't think it was in the announcement when we did the bonus episode, but the ability now to link it to your OneDrive or to your Dropbox, I believe, or one of them, or Google Drive maybe, and you can upload your spreadsheets like you could before, but now you can actually converse with your spreadsheet. So you're able to like go to a cell and you'll be able to have a conversation about that cell. And it's basically like the Copilot for Excel, but within ChatGPT. It's absolutely mad. I haven't had a lot of time to play with it, but it's pretty crazy. Yeah, so if anyone dealing with numbers, it's going to change your entire workflow.
Very impressive.
Yeah, the code interpreter for anyone who's ever opened a spreadsheet before, highly recommend. I mean, I use that all the time for just the most random things, and it is absolutely brilliant to go through and just type into. I got to start doing more audio. I've been trying to, with this announcement, to like, all right, whatever that task is, let's try it audio. But I do like.
I don't think we got it here yet on this side of the pond, unfortunately. We're having to wait a little while. So I'm very excited to get it.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. But even though it's been, for OpenAI, it feels like it's been an incredible week in terms of this announcement, almost universal praise. It hasn't been all plain sailing, has it, Yoshi? There's been a few developments that are worth talking about. So there's definitely stuff going on behind the scenes. It hasn't all been rosy at OpenAI for a while after Sam left and then came back. But now we understand there's some significant departures. I think it's Ilya Sutskever. I think one of the main security guys there has left, and his team have left as well. Basically citing the fact that, I mean, I don't think they said it, but they're obviously not very happy about the direction that they're going in terms of the safeguarding measures that they're putting in place.
Yeah.
How significant do you think these departures are?
So for me, the fact that they've closed the AI safety unit because of that, I think it was Jan and Ilya leaving, I think is quite concerning, especially because we know as we step forward to reaching AGI or advanced AI, we're in a position whereby we're looking to some of these big tech companies to help us navigate some of these risks and concerns, right? I mean, even to the form of an existential crisis, for instance. But I think another issue is that it leans into the AI brain drain. So with talent amongst big tech, there's a lot of shifting of big talent moving away from some of these companies. And I think within California, and correct me if I'm wrong here, I don't think you can have kind of non-competes within your contract. So you can move between companies and you can develop your own IP and move quite quickly. So it's quite fluid. But I think this big churn over talent across these big companies might cause a bit of turbulence in us reaching a collective end goal.
Yeah, that's how kind of Claude and Anthropic came about. Weren't there a lot of people from OpenAI's team that moved over?
And Ilya himself, I think, was from Google. I think, not sure.
Yeah. But apparently they put in this new guy, Jakob Pachowski, as the new chief scientist for OpenAI's future direction. What do you think, Micah? Is that just, kind of playing politics and just putting someone in that role, but they don't really care? Or do you think they are taking this seriously?
Hard to say, but I'm not the person to answer this question. I mean, all I know is if you're on a construction program, you better have a safety team. And that safety team better have the authority to go execute what they need to do to keep the site safe and then build a culture of safety on that program. Because I think in construction parallels a lot of things, and everybody on the site needs to mirror the culture that the safety team is setting up. So that way, for example, if us three are schedulers and we went and walked the job site and saw something very dangerous, we would report it and say something because there's a culture of safety there, because you can't have eyes and ears everywhere yet on the construction site. And so, yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, there's a lot of back and forth on it. And to me, I would hope that these companies and groups keep our best interests in mind. But it's hard because they're also commercial organizations, and that is like the whole idea of safety in this space is so nuanced and goes so far that everyone's definition appears to be potentially a little bit different. So I'm just going to take the optimistic person's view, grab my coffee and say, hope it works out for the best.
Yeah. Well, that's all any of us can really do, I suppose, because, this AI arms race, we've got these big players fighting each other. And whilst it's all exciting because the announcements are coming thick and fast, we'll go through Google's one shortly. It does leave this kind of taste in the mouth that it's going maybe a bit too fast. And there's a lot of developments happening that, maybe aren't getting the press they deserve because there's just so much going on. I mean, another one that I wanted to talk about today was OpenAI partnering with Reddit. These people, anyone who's taken part in Reddit conversations, you never bought into the fact that your data, your conversations might be being used to train a model. Well, too bad. Now they are.
Yeah. But you didn't. Like I mentioned earlier in the show, I quit a lot of the social media platforms. I mean, the user of social media, from my understanding, isn't the customer. It's the advertisers that are buying the data and the information from the social media companies, I guess, from what I've read and seen. And so to me, if you're on Reddit and you've put stuff out there on the internet, your little comments, it would be a weird for me, just in my shoes, be like, man, I'm so mad that they're scraping my data and information. I'm like, yeah, like that's what they were going to do at some end point.
The trade-off, yeah. You don't get
I'd also be like very concerned about someone using, because I don't know if anyone's ever been on Reddit, but man, this is like a dumpster fire in a dumpster fire next to more dumpster fires in a bigger dumpster fire. And I would prefer my AI to not be trained on that.
Well, it's too late because they've set this deal up, and I'm sure there's some benefits to it as well. And Yoshi and I have been talking about Perplexity, which is another tool that we've been using, which is also uses Reddit data. It is great, and it certainly gives a broader kind of reach of information out there, because I think Perplexity uses Reddit and YouTube data. But you're
Oh,
right,
really?
there are some gems in there, or nuggets as we've started calling them on this show, but there is a lot of rubbish as well.
The thing is, it's not surprising that OpenAI kind of revealed this partnership, because I think Sam Altman is a majority shareholder within Reddit, and
Yeah.
for people who are quite deep into technology and kind of other phenomena, it's a great place to consume information of different views and opinions. I mean, yeah, there's the risk around breaking privacy of people's information. I did see some people actually post in Reddit saying, "Am I going to be sued?" So the AI will definitely pick that up as well. But yeah, I did see from this partnership, Reddit's stock price went up by 10%,
Yeah, it was huge.
13%.
Wow.
So it's huge.
So Sam's got even richer in the last few weeks.
Yeah, yeah. But the thing you've got to think about as well, because the information within Reddit is so vast in terms of its quality, quantity, filtering that information down is going to take a lot of effort. And because people, when they kind of speak or how they use Reddit, it's more colloquial, it's more informal. So as the AI picks this language up, it'll be interesting to see how the content within Reddit actually changes, because it's now going to be more AI focused. But also, it might be harder to actually distinguish between what's AI and what's not, because it's been learning off the language or the discourse used within Reddit.
Yeah, it's going to make it all a little bit more complicating, isn't it? But as we said before, there's no stopping it. You know, you've got all these partnerships starting to form. We talked about the Google ones and the Apple with OpenAI, Apple with Reddit. It does feel like there's this Wild West thing going on at the moment, with lots of kind of partnerships coming up, and there's a bit of FOMO, isn't there, from everyone? No one wants to miss out on the big kind of deal.
Yeah, well, I saw that there's a LinkedIn video where is it Synthesa, the video creator, where you could type in the words and they'll bring in an AI character to speak for you through like presentations. I'm totally butchering their name, but maybe they should have made it easier to pronounce. But they took the OpenAI, and I'll share the video with you so you can put it in your show notes, but they took the OpenAI, little bubbly thing, and they just had one of their AI people speak it. It was wild. I mean, it's because the emotion, they have emotion and tone and all that stuff in their videos, and they just put a human person saying it. And you're like, wow, that is like way more powerful now that you have someone. You can still tell. I can always tell in like the mouth, like it's never quite 100%. But that one was really interesting. So that's like another partnership where, I don't know, just OpenAI buy them, and now you have the actual, person speaking to you now. That's,
and you're right. You can tell there's something off. It's very hard to put your finger on, but there is definitely something off. Same with the AI generated music or the AI generated films. There's something about it, and I'm not sure if we'll ever get past that, but it'll be interesting.
Yeah. I think you will, and I think it'd be hard when they do studies and they put up like 10 videos. I just feel like you're getting it overloaded. But when I just got like one video and I sit there, I get some time to think about it, and I replay it a couple times, like, yeah, this is probably it, So I'm wondering how they set up these, like, you can't tell versus you can tell. And now, especially even in writing, it's sometimes easier to spot, when someone is using AI you get the like longer random words and all that other things, but it'll get us one of these days. They're taking Reddit data and using those conversations.
They're going to get some bad English.
But that'll make it more believable. Exactly.
Yeah. No, that's an interesting point. Yeah.
Hey, write me a LinkedIn article, but make sure it is common language and there's enough errors to make it believable. Like
make it sound like it's from Reddit.
Do you know what I can see coming? I can see a filter on these large language models like ChatGPT where you can toggle it, saying how human-like do you want to make it. I remember on music programs, when music programs and drum machines first started coming out, they were all quantized to the exact beat, and musicians started saying, well, it's too good, it's too perfect. And then they introduced this, there's literally a button on some of these music programs called the humanizer, and you can turn it up and it makes it less perfect. So I think that's going to be coming with these large language models as well.
You can do it already. So I take some of the stuff that I do and I say, rewrite this at a 5th grade reading level.
Really? Okay.
Done. All the fancy fluffy words, gone. 5th grade reading level.
I have to talk mine up.
I think I think another really cool thing with the Reddit content though is the way that Reddit's kind of set up. It's kind of more of a platform user base, right? So all the content which people like and actually find credible is downvoted or upvoted. So I think for them to be able to filter this information, they can just prioritize information from high quality subthreads, even subreddits, and then use those which have got kind of those references in between. And I think that will help them to effectively filter the information coming through. So that could be one tactic they look to use, and as well as kind of human auditors. I know they've used that in the past in more unethical ways,
Yeah,
but we'll
maybe.
see how they work it through.
Time will tell. Anyway, moving on to the next story. I did want to pick this one up with you, Micah, because it's kind of your field. It was BuildDot, big player in the construction world, construction tech world. They've now introduced an AI-powered tool to sort of help predict construction delays. So what are the key features of it? Can you tell us a little bit about what this tool is and how it might help?
Yeah, so BuildDots is in the category of visual-based progressing companies. And so right now in the construction planning and scheduling space, you're going to have, I would say, software predominant companies and, I would say like database, software, information companies, and then visual-based progressing companies. So a visual-based progressing company is they'll put on a 360 camera and they'll go walk the job site and they basically create this, model of your construction project. And it started out with just a 360 picture, but as time progressed, it said, okay, now we can connect that directly back to the model. So we can show you your job site compared to the model. So you can see, hey, is this pipe where it should be? Or you said this pipe was going to be on Tuesday and now it's Friday and it's not here. And then they took it one step further and said, now we can compare it against every single snap that we've took. And so I haven't seen this firsthand, but what I'm assuming they're doing is just looking at the trend of progress over time on key commodities and then using a model to say, well, you should have been here or you should have been there, or this is trending late. Because if you think about it, they can go scan a site and they know that there is 100 meters of pipe, right? And if you go scan the site and only 10 meters has been installed and it's supposed to be due tomorrow, you have a pretty good idea of we have a problem. So I think they're just doing that in a better, smarter, nuanced way. Just scanning the sites, using a predictive model, on commodities and installations and saying, are you going to be on time or not?
So effectively,
go ahead.
Effectively, you walk the site and this AI technology is going to be able to give you progress against the milestones automatically.
Yeah, so it analyzes 3D images, tracks the progress of construction activities, and then compares it with the visual data, with BIM and schedules, and it can determine the percentage of each completion task.
That's a bit of a game changer, isn't it?
Yes.
I mean, thinking about cost managers as well, trying to do those interim valuations, guessing. I've been on site, say, oh, it's about 35% done. No more of that. You've got an accurate, the AI is telling you exactly what percentage is done compared to the model.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's step in the DeLorean and let's just start cruising forward in the future. So the first thing you got to consider is on the progressing side, there's a visual progress and there's non-visual progress. And if you look at a construction progress and took a bar of it, right, there's going to be a percent that's stuff that's visible and there's going to be a percent of stuff that's not visible. So if you want to conquer all of construction progressing, you have to take visible and non-visible and put them together. So visible stuff, hey, we installed that steel beam. Great. Non-visible stuff is going to be in two different buckets. Stuff that's construction related and stuff that infield construction related and stuff that's not. Infield construction related, hey, we're pulling wire through some sort of pipe or some underground thing. You can't physically see that. So that's non-visible construction progress. The other, I would say the non-construction stuff is, hey, I got my permit stamped. Is someone wearing a helmet cam when they stamp the permit, I feel a lot of that will go digital workflow related, but you need to be able to combine all of that progress together. So let's say we snap our fingers and we did all of that, right? If you go forward in the future, all you need to think about then is, okay, I have built 3 or 4 projects. And here's the thing, going back to our earlier comment, how everything is kind of the same, just repackaged again. All construction is concrete, steel, cables, wires. It's just the same stuff, the same subcontractors building the stuff. They're just making a different cake each time, right? But now you have
exactly.
but now you have this really finite granular data set that says, hey, on this project, we installed this bolt, this screw, this widget. This is unheard of before, right? Now you have an advanced modeling capability to say, and computer program capability to say, this is actually the most optimal way to go build it. And by the way, I've already built you the schedule for it. And by the way, I've already built the cost program for it. And by the way, I've already built it in a way that's optimized for these scanners to come out and do it again. Because right now, the schedule is built for a human. So I'm going to go say, hey, I don't want you to put more than 10,000 activities in my Primavera P6 schedule because I can't scroll through it fast enough, right? In the future, I'm using a computer. Go put a gazillion activities in there because I don't have to deal with it, right? And then you're going to jump over another hurdle. So you have the whole optimization thing. The last hurdle you're going to jump over is the payment thing, because payment in construction creates so much overhead.
Well,
I mean, it's unreal.
Big one.
So there was a white paper written, I'm going to forget the author, but it's a guy out of Stanford, and he built the system that used visual-based progressing and then blockchain.
Blockchain, yeah.
To then automate the payment process. And then, so it takes a picture, boom, you're 30% done, boom. And so what you're trying to do, go ahead.
Blockchain's a massive subject all in its own right. And I think we probably warrants a podcast all on its own, because it could solve so many problems, not just the payment, but actually logging all those kind of events that happen, whether that's a change order, whether that's a variation, that can all go on the blockchain, right?
Yeah, all of it. Yeah. And so then you get to this point where after enough projects of capturing this finite amount of data, you should be able to design a building and engineer a building faster because you have the data set of what makes it go faster than the decision capability behind it. Because that's the last final pillar of this whole thing, is that if you don't know what you're going to design and build, it doesn't matter what data set and capability you have on the back end. So that's the book, How Big Things Get Done. Finish the design.
Ben Flubier.
Yeah, how big? Like
brilliant book.
Finish the design. Finish the design, because that's what's going to enable all these capabilities. So that's when I look at what BuildOut's doing today. It's just another domino.
Was think slow, then act fast. Right? That's his mantra.
Yeah. And another one, he has close the window.
Yeah.
So that's talking about design. As long as you don't know what you're actually building, you inherently have a load of risk there. Yeah. But in addition to that risk, you lose out on a lot of opportunities. So contractually, execution-wise, prefabrication, I mean, the list goes on and on and on of all these things that if you're still in the process of tinkering with your design as you go, you have to go do different means and methods that increase your risks on the project and increase your project costs, but also lower your optimization. So I think it's great what BuildOuts is doing. I mean, I'm excited to check it out. And it's just another block that's falling over in capability. And it's going to get wild.
Well, talking about Ben Flubier, it's another piece of Lego, isn't it? Because he likes to use the old Lego analogy. And it's another step towards this utopia, isn't it? Where everything is kind of automated and it's moving fast.
Just on that, James, before we move on, one thing that I found really interesting was that their idea for building this tool was when they conducted their own research, right? And in the research, they found that 62% of construction activities are regularly behind schedule. So that was a spark of when they started to develop.
I think it's probably more than that, to be honest. But
then when they did some global beta testing, they actually found that there was 50% reduction in delays when combined with some of their other capabilities. So it is working, and it shows that there's definitely a use case for it.
Absolutely. No, it's really exciting. Another exciting kind of development, another step on the road to where we think this is all heading. One more quick question. It would be remiss to sort of end the podcast without talking about, it's kind of been overshadowed, undoubtedly been overshadowed by OpenAI's announcement, but Google also made an announcement. Certainly didn't steal as much limelight as OpenAI. What do you think about the Google announcement, Micah?
It was interesting. There's a lot of good stuff. It seemed to me that they went for more optimizations rather than wows. And I think the biggest problem for me was that, when they ran their video demonstration, they had to put the we didn't record and make this seem fake before they did it. And so I think that's the kind of thing that probably in the community that we're in, where we like the new tech, new innovation, new things that we kind of had to take with a grain of salt. about what they're doing. But again, I think the more people in this space doing more things is better than not. And some of the capabilities they have, I just feel like a lot of times that they're letting their drip faucet go a little bit slower. And they're trying to position this maybe a little bit more B2B. I don't know. Again, this is not my space. So I'm just a guy who watches YouTube a bit, and because there's just times where I want them to turn the faucet on more, because the Google, Gmail, Drive, it's a very connected ecosystem that makes a lot of sense. And there's just times where I get on to Gemini and I'm like, why don't you just connect the dots here for me? I know you can do this. Like, just do it.
It's there for the taking, isn't it? They just need to. It feels like they're reluctant. I remember when Bard came out, it had all over it, this is an experiment. It almost feels like they're apologizing for what they're doing, whereas OpenAI are just, they're out there doing it.
But what I quite like about it, right, is the fact that their strategy to integrate AI into a lot of their products is potentially a big advantage for them, because it means that kind of more vertical tools which are focused on very niche use cases, and because Google have like Google Drive and Gmail, the integration of Gemini within those apps really supercharges some of their capabilities, right? So vertical tools might struggle, I think, if once they step into that space, because they've got such a strong dominance within that software market.
Well, and to be fair, we just talked about thinking slow, acting fast. Maybe they're just trying to be a bit responsible. And here we are saying, go faster, even though they've
still got an AI safety team, right? They've still got a safety team there for AI. So
exactly. Something OpenAI don't have anymore. So there you go.
Well, and they make money now. They make a ton of money now. And so they have what space they're in, where they make all their money still off of ads. So the space they're in, they can probably move a bit slower because they don't have to be on this crazy growth trajectory. And I do like that. Yoshi, I second what you're saying. I mean, if you bring AI in a smart way into like Google Photos and people start using it, they don't even really know they're using AI, but then more people just love that app because of that capability. I think that's brilliant, versus like ChatGPT seems like they kind of got to sell their stuff to Microsoft to get into more products, and GPT will only go so far. And it'll go really far. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it could be like an extremely helpful assistant, but it's never going to take over your Photos app, or it's never going to take over your Drive, and to a certain extent. And maybe they'll sell that capability to Microsoft, and Microsoft will implement it back in. But having that kind of vertical thing where it's in it and it's kind of partying, I mean, that's where I think they do their position really nicely.
Yeah,
and like you mentioned it in the newsletter, actually, James, where we see the integration of some of the files that you can upload to analyze Excel files and CSVs within ChatGPT. Their integrations into Google Drive is a lot more mature than what they have in Microsoft, despite Microsoft's investment in ChatGPT. So Google obviously do have this kind of a monopoly at the moment within some of these softwares like Gmail, Google Meet, and all these others. They've got a lot of ground to work from.
Well, we were talking about this last week. It's weird, isn't it? Microsoft are the biggest investor. Here they are doing deals with Google, and then at the same time seem to be doing deals with Apple. So it seems to be a free-for-all. It sounds like OpenAI will get in bed with anyone. Maybe I'll give them a call after this. On that bombshell,
deals.
That's all we've got time for this week. I'm afraid. I'm sure we could keep chatting all night, but we do have to draw the line, because I did promise you, Micah, at the beginning that this was less than an hour show. So we have to stop it at that point. But thank you.
If there's one thing I am, it's a hypocrite. So we can go longer.
I'd just like to say thank you so much for coming on. I do hope you'll join us again at another point. Any final words from you, Micah?
Yeah, when we were wrapping up the Build Dots conversation, you mentioned a automation utopia, or some sort of automation utopia. And I think, to me, when I look towards the future, I don't see it so much as a Wall-E type future where we're just all sitting back and it's in a Wall-E. I think that it'll transition into, you're going to focus on more of the things, going back to your 80-20 rule, that are actually important. And you're going to be able to focus on what I think are usually most important problems, are optimization problems, rather than data collection problems or analysis for problems. It's you're looking at this big complex system and you finally maybe can figure out some dials to turn to optimize it in a way that you'll be successful. And so that's for the users out there who are kind of trying to digest this. And it's always sometimes helpful to step back and think about these technologies from a standpoint of how is this going to optimize this chaotic system of my life that I exist in? And maybe it's just taking ChatGPT with you to go grocery shopping, and having a conversation with it there. Yeah, and that's all. Or maybe it'll help you, in other ways. But you got to pick up and use the technology. And man, thanks again for having me on the show. And I got to get Yoshi. We got to get you Beyond Deadlines, and maybe we can get you James as well, and we can do a 4-round on it and really get after it. So
I want you to have Yoshi on his own so he can meet our miserable Greg, actually, because I want him to experience that. But if anyone else wants to experience miserable Greg,
I like that.
Make sure you subscribe to.
I like that. James just did the move where like a fight's about to break out, and he's like, "Yoshi, you got this. I'm going to be. I'm going to fight."
Tuck him in the deep end.
Yeah. On that bombshell, any last words from you, Yoshi?
No. One thing I actually want to pick up on is if you look in the newsletter at the bottom, I think there's a link to how many times AI was mentioned in Google's demonstration, and it looked like it was 100 plus.
Really?
And I felt like someone actually snipped every single mention of AI, and I thought it was quite funny. So if you've got a chance, check that out. Excellent.
Brilliant.
All right, that's it. So until next week, have a great week, everyone, and we'll see you next week for another episode of Project Flux. Bye-bye.